Between June 1st, 1925, and April 30th of 1939, Lou Gehrig played 2,130 games without taking a break. He became baseball's Iron Man. He set a record that many thought would never get broken. He set a record many thought no one would even challenge. See, there's 162 games in a baseball season. You're playing from May to September, October if your team makes a postseason. To play one season, to play 162 games in one season without taking a break, that's an accomplishment. I remember a few years back, Manny Machado did it for the Orioles. The only player to do it that year. It's something when a player plays a full year. It's something to think about. I mean, baseball's a hard game. You're playing in the hot, grueling summer months. You're traveling all over the country. You only get a few days in a month off, and many of those days are travel days. So for Lou Gehrig to do that over the course of 14 seasons was remarkable. And for no one to think that his record would ever get broken was understandable. That was the record of records. It was never going to get broken. To put this in perspective, the second place to his record was set in 1925. Actually, at the time, it was the record. Lou Gehrig beat that record. That record was set by Everett Scott at 1,307 consecutive games. Not only did Lou Gehrig break that record, but he blew it out of the water. But that record was set in 25. Lou Gehrig's record was set in 39. Decades go on, no one challenges it. In 1981, Cal Ripken gets called up to the majors. And he gets called up to a very good Orioles team. He says in his book, The Only Way I Know, "So I chewed a few more sunflower seeds into 2 months in 81 that I had in 3.5 years in the minors. I watched my new teammates who'd won 100 games the previous season without my help. I thought about what my manager, Earl Weaver, had said about my immediate prospects. He has some pretty good players in front of him. And I wondered, how can I ever break into this lineup? And if I do, how can I be sure to stay there? I came up with 2 answers. Play well and play every day." See, I grew up in the 90s watching Cal Ripken play, and he became somewhat of an idol to me. As you can see, this is just a minor portion of my collection of things that I got growing up, and some of this is that I've gotten recently. Cal Ripken became a big part of my childhood. The Orioles became a big part of my childhood, and it was special seeing him play. Cal Ripken, I mean, he was a great player. In 82, when he finally gets his start, 82, he becomes Rookie of the Year. 83, he becomes League MVP. First player to ever win Rookie of the Year, League MVP back-to-back. Fast forward to 91. Almost 10 years later, he's still playing at that caliber. He becomes the second player in Major League history to win League MVP, League Player of the Year, All-Star Game MVP, and a Gold Glove, all in one season. See, Cal Ripken was a special player. Shortstops at that time, they were shorter. They were fast. There was a certain model that people had thought out of what a shortstop was supposed to be. Everything Cal Ripken wasn't. Cal Ripken was tall, kind of thought of as being a little bit slow. So for the fact that Cal Ripken moved up to the shortstop position from third early in his career and dominated the shortstop position for as long as he did was remarkable. But as his career went on, people started taking notice of something else about him. In 1985, Cal Ripken played his 500th consecutive game. At this point, he's a long way off from Lou Gehrig's record. I don't think at that point anyone's really thinking he's going to challenge it. He's got years and years to go before he can challenge this record. Fast forward to 88, he plays his 1,000th game. People are taking a little more notice, but like I said, that's 88. At this point, he's played 6 years. Lou Gehrig played 14. In 1990, he becomes second to Lou Gehrig, passing Everett Smith. Now people are paying attention. But he hit some roadblocks along the way. There were times where his streak almost ended. In 85, now this is just his third year, he's playing against Texas, and he sprains his left ankle. That almost takes him out. They had an exhibition game following that. He sat out for the exhibition game. No big deal. But he continues playing. In 92, he twists his right ankle playing against Milwaukee. Played the next game and actually didn't even miss an inning for a week after that. In 93, the Orioles were playing Seattle and got into a pretty nasty brawl in which Cal Ripken twists his right knee. Plays the rest of that game. That night, his knee stiffens up. And he was a little worried. He takes himself out of the lineup. And he thought the streak was ending right there. However, he goes to the game. He goes through his warm-ups. His knee loosens up. And he ends up playing. His streak continues. In 1994, his streak gets challenged again. The Players Union goes on a strike. The season ends in August of that year. There's no playoffs. There's no World Series in 94. But the owners wanted to be guaranteed that in 95 the season was going to continue. And it was going to continue with or without the players. They were going to bring in replacement players. In 95, had the union not ended their strike, had replacement players come in to play the 95 season, Cal Ripken's streak would have ended. It would have ended 122 games shy of Lou Gehrig's record. Luckily, for baseball and for Cal Ripken, the players' union came to an agreement with the league, and in 95, the players resumed play, and Cal Ripken's streak lived on. September 6, 1995. After the top of the fifth inning, a game becomes official. And in Camden Yards, there's this big, long brick building. They had these numbers set up. And at the end of the top of the fifth inning, for each home game, a number would change as his streak went on. And on September 6, 1995, after the third out in the top of the fifth inning, that number strikes. 2,131. Broadcasters that day for ESPN were Chris Berman and Buck Martinez. The moment that number struck 2,131, they went silent. For 22 minutes, the announcers didn't say a word. Cal Ripken takes a victory lap around Camden Yards. He didn't know what was going to happen, how it was going to go down, but the place just went crazy. I commonly will watch that video on YouTube. As someone who grew up watching him, I remember that game. I was young. I remember that game. It's something that has been embedded in my memory. But even today, I'll watch that on YouTube, and it'll still bring a tear to my eye. Just thinking of what Cal Ripken did, that work ethic that he had. Not only was Cal Ripken the best shortstop in Major League Baseball during his time, arguably one of the best ever to play that position. He did it with a work ethic that is second to none. This is something that not only is it remarkable in terms of the history of baseball, it's something that everyone can learn from. That kind of work ethic. He played at the top of the top. And he didn't take it for granted. It's something that in my life, in my career, I can look at that and be like, wow, that is something I should strive for. And I think of all the idols, of all the people that are looked up to, and there's controversy that's constantly surrounded by these people. Cal Ripken was a player that was never really surrounded by much controversy. He had this awesome work ethic. And he became baseball's Iron Man. Cal Ripken went on to play 2 more seasons, ending his streak at 2,632. And I'm pretty confident that streak will never be touched.